Have you ever caught your reflection in a mirror and, for a split second, something just didn't feel right? Maybe the angle was off, or the lighting made you look different. But imagine standing in front of a mirror you've used every day for years, your bathroom mirror, your closet door, your car's rear view, and one day, you look into it and you're absolutely certain the person staring back isn't you. Not like a bad hair day or I look tired kind of moment, but a deep, gut-level confusion. That terrifying, skin-crawling sense that something is fundamentally wrong. That's exactly what happened to one woman, and her search for answers didn't just shake her world. It shattered everything she thought she knew about who she was. You're probably thinking, come on, that's got to be some kind of psychological issue, right? That's what doctors thought too, at first. But then a very specific and subtle detail triggered something far bigger than anyone could have imagined. What began as a routine checkup quickly unraveled into a chilling mystery involving a mirror, a medical anomaly, and a DNA test that no one saw coming. And here's the twist that will keep you watching until the end. That test didn't just provide answers. It exposed a truth so shocking, so personal, it could only belong in a psychological thriller. But this isn't fiction. This is real. And you're going to see exactly how it all unfolds. Now, I want to talk directly to you for a moment. Because if you're still here, that means something about this story already has its hooks in you. Maybe you've had a moment in your life when you questioned your identity. Maybe you've noticed something strange in the mirror, or maybe someone once said, "You don't look like your parents." This isn't just a creepy story. It's a journey through one woman's very real nightmare, and the reason you need to stick with me through this video is because the answer you're here for, you're going to get it. But only when the full picture comes together. YouTube is filled with viral stories, crazy plot twists, and shocking revelations, but this story hits different. It's not just about what happened. It's about how it happened, why it happened, and what it means for you, me, and anyone who's ever felt like the truth was hiding just behind the surface. And don't worry, I'm not going to drag you along and leave you hanging. I'm going to walk you step by step through the story, peeling back each layer until you see the truth with your own eyes. This is the kind of tale you won't just watch and forget. This is one that stays with you, makes you question the world around you, and maybe even question yourself. So, let's start at the very beginning. Her name is Emily Carson. She's 33 years old. Lives in suburban Ohio, just outside of Dayton. Works as a dental hygienist, has a cat named Luna, drinks oat milk lattes every morning before her 7:30 a.m. commute, and wears the same lavender-scented lotion her mom used to wear. Emily's life is routine, organized, comfortable. Her apartment is clean, minimalist, and decorated with neutral colors and motivational quotes from Etsy. She's not famous. She doesn't crave attention. She's a regular woman, just like millions of others. But what made Emily's life extraordinary wasn't anything she chose. It was something buried so deep in her DNA that no one, including Emily, had any idea it existed. It began on a rainy Wednesday morning. She was brushing her teeth, staring into her mirror like she had 1,000 times before. But this time, something froze her. It wasn't the lighting. It wasn't a trick of the eye. It was the reflection. Her eyes, her real, living, blinking eyes, were staring at her reflection, but what she saw looking back didn't blink at the same time. A blink off by less than half a second. And then another. She rubbed her eyes, laughed it off. But then it happened again the next morning. And the next. She thought maybe it was sleep deprivation. Or stress. Or maybe, just maybe, she was losing her mind. Now, here's where it gets eerily relatable. Because Emily did what most of us would do. She Googled it. Reflection delay in mirror. Mirror doesn't match movement. Why do I look different in the mirror? She fell into the same kind of rabbit hole you've probably fallen into late at night, when you're too tired to sleep but too curious to stop scrolling. She read about optical illusions, disassociation, even something called Capgras syndrome, where people believe their loved ones have been replaced by imposters. But nothing quite matched what she was experiencing. It wasn't fear of someone else. It was fear of herself. And the more she tried to explain it, the more people dismissed it. Her coworkers laughed it off. "Girl, you need a vacation," one of them said.
Her mom told her to get more sleep.
Her best friend told her to stop watching TikTok horror stories. And TikTok, by the way, is where she finally stumbled upon something that made her blood run cold. A video of a woman claiming her reflection glitched. Yes, glitched. Right before she learned a secret about her own family. That video was one of the top trending short-form mysteries last fall. You might have seen it. And if not, stick around, because it connects to Emily's story in a way no one expected. But back to Emily. Things got weirder. One morning, while taking a selfie in the mirror, she noticed something disturbing. The birthmark on her collarbone?
Gone.
It was still there on her body. She could touch it, but in the photo and in the mirror? Nothing. Just smooth, unmarked skin. She thought maybe it was her phone's filter. She cleaned the mirror. She even bought a new mirror from Target. Same result. Her reflection was no longer her. That's when she made a doctor's appointment. Not for her mental health, though she was starting to question that too, but for a full physical, blood work, and an eye exam. She needed proof that something was wrong. What she didn't expect was that her blood test would come back flagged for something called a familial anomaly. The nurse said it was probably a glitch in the system. But when her physician, Dr. Miranda Keene, looked closer, she saw a pattern that triggered an ethical protocol, one that involved contacting a specialist in genetic disorders. Dr. Keene didn't say much, just looked Emily in the eye and said 6 words that changed everything. "We need to run a DNA test." At this point, I know what you're thinking. DNA test?
Why?
What does a reflection have to do with genetics? And here's where the real mystery kicks into overdrive. Because that DNA test didn't just confirm her identity, it challenged it. It questioned who her parents were, where she came from, and whether the life she'd been living was built on a lie. This isn't just a medical case. It's a personal unraveling. And it's only just getting started. Now remember, you're watching this for a reason. You felt that tug of curiosity. That itch to understand what could make a person's reflection fall out of sync with their reality. And I promise you, by the time this video ends, you'll understand exactly what happened to Emily, why it happened, and what it means for anyone watching who has ever wondered, what if the truth about me is different than what I've always believed? This story is packed with twists. I'm talking about a hidden adoption scandal, long-lost relatives, false identities, and a dark family history that no one ever wanted to uncover. The kind of truth that can only be found in the tiniest strands of DNA, those microscopic codes that carry not just your traits, but your entire identity. You're going to see how one woman's refusal to accept a simple explanation led to the unraveling of a mystery bigger than herself. And trust me, if you think you've figured it out already, you haven't. Not even close. Emily didn't sleep that night. After the appointment with Dr. Keene, she drove home in a daze, not even remembering the route she took or the stoplight she sat at for nearly 5 minutes before someone honked. Her mind was a fog of fragmented thoughts, all circling one question she couldn't push away. Why would her doctor recommend a DNA test for what started as a mirror issue? That wasn't standard, was it? Was it just precaution? Or was there something deeper? Something she hadn't been told yet? The next morning, she sat on her couch, wrapped in a blanket even though it was warm outside, staring at her phone. She replayed the conversation in her mind over and over again. The expression on Dr. Keene's face hadn't just been medical concern, it was something heavier. Something guarded. Like she knew more than she was saying, but was trying to protect Emily from it. And that silence was starting to crush her. Trying to distract herself, Emily scrolled through her recent photos. Normal selfies, birthday brunches, her and Luna curled up on the couch, gym check-ins, skincare hauls. Nothing unusual. But then she noticed something subtle in a picture taken at her friend Tasha's engagement party 2 weeks ago. Everyone else in the background had a natural smile, genuine body language. But Emily? Her smile looked off, almost strained. Her head was slightly tilted, and her eyes had that same faint delay she'd noticed in the mirror. She zoomed in, trying to convince herself it was just a weird angle, maybe some motion blur, but the unease in her chest deepened. Something wasn't right. And as much as she didn't want to go down the rabbit hole again, she opened her notes app and began listing anything unusual from the last few months. Things she'd brushed off as normal at the time. First, There was the nosebleed at work that wouldn't stop. Then the day she walked into her apartment and her smart speaker played a playlist she never made, some vintage lullabies that gave her chills. Then the text message she received from a number with no contact name, just a single line. "Do you feel like yourself lately?" She had deleted it thinking it was a scam or a weird prank, but now she regretted not saving it. That same week, she remembered waking up with a scratch on her back. She couldn't explain. She had asked her ex-boyfriend Marcus about it. He said she must have done it in her sleep. That was 2 days before they broke up. And now Marcus lingered in her thoughts. Not because she missed him, but because he was one of the only people who had access to her apartment when she wasn't home. She had trusted him with a spare key. They dated for nearly a year, but something had shifted in the final months. He'd started acting overly curious about her family, asking odd questions about her childhood that felt out of place. He once asked if she had baby pictures, actual baby pictures, not just the toddler ones on Facebook. At the time, she'd laughed it off. Her mom had always said they lost a bunch of old photos in a storage flood when Emily was about 4. But now, that detail felt too conveniently placed in her timeline. Was that even true? Her relationship with her mom, Sharon, had always been loving but complicated. Sharon was a practical woman, raised in a small farming town in Kentucky before moving to Ohio to start a new life. She raised Emily as a single mother and rarely talked about Emily's father. When asked, she'd always say it was a one-time thing, a mistake from the past, and shut down the conversation. As a kid, Emily assumed it was just painful for her mom. As an adult, she accepted the mystery. But now, with a DNA test looming and all these weird signs accumulating, that silence felt less like pain and more like hiding something. Emily needed answers, but she didn't want to call her mom just yet. Instead, she drove to her childhood neighborhood, something she hadn't done in years. Her old house was still there, but it had been repainted and renovated. A new family lived there. She didn't knock. She just sat across the street in her car and watched, hoping maybe being near it would jog a memory. Nothing came. Just a weird sensation in her stomach, like something important had happened there, but had been wiped clean. She visited the park she used to play at, sat on the swing, and remembered a little boy with dark hair who used to call her Emmy. She couldn't remember his name. Couldn't even picture his face. That should have been normal. People forget childhood playmates, but the emptiness of the memory felt forced, like something had been pulled from her mind without her knowing. Back home, she dug through the one old photo album she had, the one her mom gave her when she moved into her first apartment. Every picture started from when she was around 4. None before that. None with hospital tags. None with extended family. Just her and her mom in various rentals, parks, and fast food birthday parties. One picture caught her attention. It was a photo of her and her mom in front of a zoo sign that said 1996 Summer Safari. She stared at it for a long time, not because of what was in the photo, but because of what was behind it. There was a woman in the background, blonde, late 30s, holding hands with a girl who looked exactly like Emily. Same eyes, same hairline, same posture. But the girl wasn't her. She was wearing a pink overall set Emily didn't recognize. She zoomed in again. That girl wasn't Emily. She couldn't be. But she looked like her, or maybe even more like her than she looked now. Emily's heart pounded. She reverse image searched the zoo photo online. Nothing came up. She uploaded it to Reddit, asking for help identifying the location, hoping maybe someone could confirm what zoo it was and whether the signage had changed over the years. That's when someone responded, asking if she'd ever heard of mirror children. She Googled it immediately. The term was mostly connected to science fiction and conspiracy forums, claims of genetic twins separated at birth, clone siblings, deep-state identity swaps. Most of it was wild, unverifiable nonsense. But a few threads talked about documented cases of children raised under false identities for medical experimentation, international adoption without parental consent, and secret twin studies carried out by shadowy organizations decades ago. She didn't believe in that kind of thing. Not really. But the more she read, the more she felt a strange pull. especially when she stumbled on a thread about a now-defunct private clinic in rural Pennsylvania that had reportedly handled special births in the 1990s, adoptions with sealed records, cases of unregistered twins, and children rehomed under unique medical contracts. One commenter posted a list of names allegedly linked to the clinic. Emily's stomach dropped when she saw her own last name, Carson, on the list, along with the date, 1992. That was the year she was born. She called Dr. Keene the next day and asked if her results had come in. The nurse on the line hesitated, then said the results had been sent to a genetics specialist for secondary verification. That wasn't standard protocol. Emily pressed harder, and eventually the nurse admitted they found something in her genome that didn't match parental inheritance patterns. When Emily asked what that meant, the nurse quickly apologized and said the doctor would call her back when she was available. She never did. And that night, Emily got another anonymous message. This one said, "Your reflection was just the beginning." Now, she felt like someone was watching her. Not in the paranoid way people joke about after binge-watching true crime. This felt intentional. Her neighbor's dog, who usually barked at everyone, stopped reacting to her. Her apartment lights flickered at random. Her laptop logged her out of her own profile 3 times. One morning, she found a small envelope slid under her door. Inside was a USB drive. She didn't plug it in. She didn't have the nerve yet. But the note attached to it simply read, "You've seen her already. You just didn't know." The paranoia was growing, but so was her determination. Emily knew something was deeply wrong. Maybe she was adopted. Maybe there had been a mix-up at birth. But what if it wasn't that simple? What if someone wanted her to believe she was crazy to cover up something much darker? She thought again about Marcus, his strange questions, his obsession with her past. He claimed to have deleted all their shared photos when they broke up, but she suddenly remembered one he took at a Halloween party where she was standing in front of a floor-length mirror. He'd called her later that night saying he deleted it because it didn't come out right. She had brushed it off then, but now she wanted that photo. Desperately. She messaged him, trying to be casual. He replied coldly, said he didn't have anything left. But then, hours later, she got an airdrop request on her phone. No name, just a photo file titled, "Do you see it now?" Her hands trembled as she opened it. The picture showed her smiling in costume, but in the mirror behind her, her reflection was facing away. Something is happening. Something she can't explain. Something buried in her blood, her memories, and the very fabric of her identity. But she's done waiting. She's ready to find out who or what she really is. She's ready to watch the footage on that USB. And what she's about to see will change everything. The USB sat untouched on Emily's desk for almost an entire day. She stared at it like it was radioactive, torn between the need to know and the fear of confirming that her entire life might be built on a lie. When she finally gathered the nerve, she took her laptop to a public library, somewhere neutral, with cameras, just in case. Paranoia had become second nature by now. She plugged the drive in, heart racing. Inside was a single video file named Eclipse_01. No timestamp. No sender. Just static on the thumbnail. She clicked play, and what loaded was surveillance footage, grainy and quiet, with a timestamp reading August 3, 1996. The camera was trained on a nursery with 2 cribs. One held a baby swaddled in a pink blanket. The other? Empty at first, until a nurse walked in carrying another baby who looked identical to the first. As the nurse laid her down, she looked up directly into the camera and smiled, just briefly, but unmistakably. Then, as if remembering she wasn't supposed to, her face dropped and she quickly turned away. Emily froze. Her hands trembled. That smile had felt wrong. Familiar somehow, but not in a comforting way. Before she could process it further, the screen glitched, flashed white, then cut to black. The file closed itself. When she tried to reopen it, the drive auto-ejected and wouldn't load again. The library's public access PC gave an error. She tried 2 more before finally giving up. The file had either been corrupted or deliberately programmed to self-destruct. Whatever was on that USB, she only got 1 shot. And someone made sure of that. The frustration nearly broke her. That footage, those babies, one of them had to be her. Or both of them? And that nurse. Who was she? Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she'd seen that woman before, somewhere outside the video. She couldn't describe it logically. It was more instinct than memory. That night, she called her mom, finally ready to confront her. But Sharon didn't answer. She tried again. Still no response. That wasn't unusual on its own. Sharon had a habit of turning her phone off when watching her favorite true crime documentaries, but Emily's panic wouldn't quiet. Something felt off. The next day, she drove 2 hours to her mom's house only to find the door slightly open, the deadbolt unlocked. Inside, the TV was still on, paused on a streaming menu. Sharon's phone sat on the kitchen counter. Her purse was still there. But she was gone. No note, no message. Emily called the police, her voice trembling as she explained the situation. They filed a report, but didn't seem overly concerned. "Maybe she just stepped out and forgot to tell you," one of the officers said. Emily knew better. Her mom was old school about safety, double locks, pepper spray on the keychain, a bat by the front door. She wouldn't have just wandered off, especially not without telling her daughter. Desperate, Emily scoured the house for clues. In the attic, behind old Christmas decorations, she found a locked metal box she'd never seen before. She used a screwdriver to pry it open. Inside were papers, some yellowed with age, medical documents, adoption forms, and signed, undated, some in different names entirely. Then, a black and white photo of 2 newborns lying side by side in what looked like a hospital crib. The names scribbled on the back were smudged, almost illegible, but Emily could make out M on one and Eli on the other. She didn't have a sibling. At least, not one she'd ever been told about. The next morning, a man was waiting outside her apartment building. Late 40s, clean-cut, wearing a suit that didn't match the weather. He didn't approach her, just stood across the street watching her as she walked to her car. She turned quickly and went back inside, watching him through her window. After 10 minutes, he got into a nondescript black sedan and drove off. That evening, someone slid another envelope under her door. No USB this time. Just a short note. "Stop asking questions. You're not ready for the answers." Her hands shook as she read it. This wasn't just about family anymore. It felt bigger. Dangerous. Like whatever secrets were buried in her past, someone powerful didn't want them uncovered. She called Marcus again, demanding answers. He didn't pick up. But later, she got a message from a mutual friend saying Marcus had left town unexpectedly. No goodbyes, no explanation. Just gone. His apartment? Cleared out. His social accounts? Deleted. The next twist hit harder than anything before. Emily, out of desperation, tried logging into an old email account she hadn't touched since high school, one tied to a shared cloud folder she and Marcus used during their relationship. She typed in the password, expecting nothing. But instead, she found a hidden folder labeled Project Mirror. Inside were dozens of encrypted images, documents, and one unprotected file titled Control Subject, EC-022. The document was brief, clinical. It listed biographical data and a coded reference to something called the Mirror Protocol. Her birth name wasn't listed as Emily Carson. It was Echo Claire. Her heart nearly stopped. Before she could read more, her laptop screen flickered again. Then it shut off entirely, refusing to restart. And her phone? Completely blacked out. No signal. No power. As if something had reached through the cloud and pulled the plug on her life. She backed away from the screen, breathing hard. Someone was inside her digital footprint. Someone knew she was getting close. And then her doorbell rang. No one should have been there. Not that late. Not after everything. She peeked through the peephole, and what she saw made her stagger back, eyes wide. It was the woman from the video. The nurse. But she hadn't aged a day. Not even one wrinkle. Emily stood frozen in place, barely breathing as she stared through the peephole. The woman outside, calm, patient, her expression eerily blank, looked exactly like the nurse from the surveillance video. Same pale blue eyes. Same tight bun. Same subtle, almost imperceptible smirk. But it had been nearly 30 years since that footage was supposedly taken, and yet this woman looked untouched by time, as if she had stepped directly from that black and white tape into Emily's world without aging a single day. Her brain tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was the lighting, maybe someone who just resembled her, but deep down she knew. This wasn't coincidence. This was deliberate.
And it was terrifying.
She backed away slowly from the door, phone still dead in her hand, laptop fried, and now, apparently, reality itself bending around her. Before she could decide what to do next, there was a soft tap on the door. Not a knock. A tap, deliberate and rhythmic. Then a pause. Another tap. 3 beats, a pause, then 2. Almost like Morse code. But before she could decode it, silence fell. When she finally dared to peek again, the woman was gone. No sound, no footsteps, no trace. Just the unsettling chill of her absence lingering in the air. Meanwhile, across the city in a quiet cul-de-sac in Maryland, a man named Daniel Cross received a package at his doorstep. Daniel, a former medical researcher turned investigative podcaster, had recently aired an episode diving into unethical clinical trials from the 1990s, some of which mentioned a now-defunct program called the Mirror Protocol. It hadn't drawn much attention at the time, just another speculative dive into buried scandals. But apparently, it had caught the attention of someone who didn't want it revisited. The package contained no return address, just a plain box with Daniel's name scrawled in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a crumpled Polaroid, grainy, yellowed, showing what looked like a hospital corridor. On the back, in red ink, someone had written, EC 022 is looking for the truth. You're already part of it. The name meant nothing to him until he opened his email that evening to find a new subscriber message. The user ID? EchoClaire_22. And attached to the message, a link to a private live stream set to begin in 6 minutes. Out of curiosity and a creeping sense of dread, Daniel clicked the link. The feed was dark at first, then lit up with grainy footage of a woman sitting in a dimly lit room. It took him a moment to recognize her, Emily Carson, the missing daughter from a news article he'd skimmed earlier that week. She looked disoriented, whispering something inaudible to the camera. Behind her, a shadow moved across the room, just out of focus. Then the feed cut off. Daniel, now visibly shaken, replayed the clip, trying to isolate the audio. He enhanced the background hiss, filtered the noise, and caught a phrase that made his skin crawl. Emily had said, "She knows I'm not the first. I'm just the only one left." Back in Emily's apartment, the air felt heavier, almost charged. She locked every door and window, checked every closet, every shadow. But the woman hadn't broken in. She hadn't needed to. What disturbed Emily more than her appearance was her familiarity, like she'd been waiting for this reunion. Like she knew this moment was inevitable. Emily tried to piece together the clues: Marcus disappearing, her mother vanishing, the altered medical files, and now this stranger who appeared unchanged after decades. Something about the name, Echo Claire, haunted her. What if it wasn't a name at all, but a designation? A code name? Was she part of some experiment? A clone? An imposter? Then she remembered something odd from years ago, an old family photo that had always made her uncomfortable. It showed her as a toddler, being held by her mom. But what never sat right was the second child partially visible at the edge of the frame. Her mother always said it was a cousin, but Emily never remembered meeting anyone who looked that much like her. Now, it made too much sense. Maybe there had been another. Maybe that was who she saw in the surveillance tape. But if there had been two, what happened to the other? Just as Emily began digging through her childhood memory boxes for that photo, a strange alert popped up on her rebooted laptop, now inexplicably functional. It was an old email synced from her mother's account, sent, but never delivered. The subject line, "If you're reading this, I'm gone." The message inside was short, frantic, and incomplete. It read, "They said it was for your protection. I didn't know the full extent. They made me sign an NDA. It's called Echo. You were never meant to." The email cut off mid-sentence, as if her mother had been interrupted or prevented from finishing. Attached was a single document, a birth record not from a hospital, but from a private facility located in upstate New York. The name of the facility? Solis Genetics Institute. Emily's heart sank. That place had been shut down years ago after being exposed for running unauthorized gene editing programs in infants under the guise of fertility treatments. Some even called it America's Black Mirror Lab, claiming its experiments blurred the line between medical innovation and human rights abuse. No wonder someone wanted this buried. No wonder the reflection didn't match. What if the reflection wasn't a mistake, but a message? A residual memory from something else? And then, just as she processed this, another email came through. This one from an unknown sender. No subject. No message. Just an attachment labeled identity_fracture. Emily hesitated, but opened it anyway. Inside was a series of timestamp screenshots from various street cams. All from different cities. All showing her. At least, someone who looked like her. In one, she was entering a courthouse in Arizona. In another, boarding a ferry in Seattle. And in the last, walking hand in hand with a child into a school in Florida. Each photo was dated within the last 2 weeks. Each showed a different outfit, different expression. But every one of them was unmistakably her face. And now she wasn't just questioning her past. She was questioning her present. How many others were there? And who was really living her life? Emily didn't sleep that night. She couldn't. Even with every light on in her apartment and the security chain double-locked, there was no comfort, only the gnawing sense that someone was watching. Her mind raced with the images from the security footage, the eerie surveillance stills of her doppelganger scattered across the country, the email from her mother that ended like a scream cut short. Her skin crawled with every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind rattling her blinds. The fear didn't come in waves anymore. It was constant, like static buzzing in her skull. She kept telling herself that if she could just find the truth, the pieces would fall into place, the terror would make sense. But the deeper she looked, the more the truth seemed to retreat, as if mocking her from just beyond reach. Around 3 a.m., her laptop buzzed again, though she had shut it down. The screen blinked to life with no prompt, displaying a single line of text, "You're not supposed to remember." Before she could react, the screen went black again. The next morning, Emily reached out to the only person she still trusted, her best friend Sarah, a no-nonsense ER nurse who had stood by her through breakups, bad jobs, and more than a few mental breakdowns. Sarah didn't hesitate. She came over with coffee, her usual sarcastic charm, and a skeptical ear. Emily poured everything out, the mirror, the medical files, the video, the email. Sarah listened quietly, not interrupting, not dismissing, just watching her with an intensity that made Emily uneasy. When she finished, Sarah said nothing for a long time. Then she pulled her phone from her pocket and began scrolling. "I want to believe you," she said slowly. "But I have to show you something." What she pulled up froze Emily to the core. A Reddit post on a true crime thread from 3 days ago. It featured a blurry image from a grocery store security camera in Virginia. The caption read, "Anyone recognize this woman? She keeps showing up in missing persons cases." Emily leaned in. It was her. Or someone who looked exactly like her, staring coldly at the camera while pushing a cart. Below, users had commented dozens of sightings in various states, some dating back years. One user even posted a side-by-side comparison of several Emilys, each wearing a different outfit, appearing at scenes hours or even days apart. One caption read, "This is some real-life glitch in the Matrix stuff. Mirror people? Clones? Government psyop?" Emily backed away from the phone like it had burned her. "I didn't post that," she whispered, breath shaky. "I wasn't there. I've never even been to Virginia." Sarah didn't respond. She just stared at her, as if trying to decide whether the person in front of her was really the Emily she'd always known. The tension stretched until Sarah finally said, "I need to make a call. Just stay here, okay?" She stepped into the hallway and shut the door. But something in the way she moved, calculated, quiet, unlike her usual clumsy assertiveness, made Emily's gut twist. She pressed her ear to the door. Sarah wasn't calling a friend. She wasn't calling the police either. She was giving coordinates. "I've got her," Sarah whispered urgently. "She still thinks she's alone." No sign of subject echo, to be.
We may have to extract now.
She's close to triggering. Emily didn't wait to hear more. She grabbed her coat, wallet, and phone and bolted out the back fire escape. Her hands were trembling. Her vision swam. She had just discovered that the person she trusted most, her anchor in all this, wasn't who she claimed to be. And what the hell did Echo 2B mean? Were they cataloging her like a specimen? She stumbled into the street, breath fogging in the cold morning air, heart hammering so hard it made her nauseous. The world around her suddenly felt fake, like a movie set where everyone was in on a script she didn't know. The pedestrians on the sidewalk glanced at her like she was a stranger, like she didn't belong. As she tried to call 911, her phone lit up with a new text from an unknown number. "You have 48 hours before they shut you down. Go to the house in Chesterton. Look for the ledger." That was all. No name. No explanation. But the mention of Chesterton struck her like lightning. That was where her family used to vacation when she was little. Her dad had a property out there that no one had visited in decades. She didn't even know if it still existed. But now it might be her only shot at figuring out what the hell was going on. As she waited for a rideshare that she didn't dare book under her real name, she sat crouched behind a dumpster, scanning the streets for anyone watching. That's when she saw it, a black SUV parked across the road, engine running. She thought maybe she was imagining things until she saw the driver lower a pair of binoculars. Their eyes met. The engine revved, and the car inched forward slowly. Emily didn't wait. She ran. Full sprint. Through alleyways, across busy streets, her breath ragged, her lungs burning. She didn't stop until she ducked into a laundromat and locked herself in the bathroom. She splashed water on her face, trying to quiet the ringing in her ears. She looked up at the mirror. Her reflection stared back, but then blinked out of sync. She stumbled back in terror. It wasn't a glitch. It wasn't her imagination. Her reflection wasn't her anymore. And now, for the first time since this nightmare began, Emily realized something that chilled her more than anything else. She wasn't running from the truth. She might be running from herself. Emily made it to Chesterton just before nightfall, the sun casting a strange, burnt orange hue over the quiet coastal town. The streets felt frozen in time, dusty antique shops, shuttered diners, and creaky porches lined with wind chimes that clinked gently in the sea breeze. It was eerily peaceful, almost too peaceful, like the kind of silence that comes before something you don't want to face. She hadn't been here since she was 10, but her body remembered what her mind couldn't. Her father's cabin stood exactly where it always had, tucked behind a row of weather-beaten pine trees, the wood warped and cracked from years of neglect. She stepped inside, and the scent hit her instantly. Aged cedar, mold, and something faintly metallic. She moved quickly, searching through drawers, floorboards, even the attic. For hours, she found nothing but old photo albums, dusty clothes, and magazines from the 90s. Until she found the ledger. It was hidden behind a loose brick in the fireplace. Bound in black leather, sealed with a strip of metal and no lock, just a strange indentation shaped like a crescent moon. She pried it open, and the contents didn't make sense at first. Dates, locations, names she didn't recognize, strange numeric codes beside each one, and a column labeled cycle status. But one name stood out, hers. Emily Roth. Cycle status. Deviated. Next to it, a string of numbers and letters that matched the tag she'd seen in her medical file weeks ago. And beneath that, another name, Clara Roth. Primary donor. Her breath caught in her throat. Her mother? Before she could process it, headlights lit up the window. Someone was here. Emily ducked and killed the lights. Through a crack in the curtain, she saw a figure step out of the car, silhouetted against the beams. At first, she thought it was Sarah, but it wasn't. It was her mother, except older. Much older. More than she could possibly be. Emily froze. Her mother had died 8 years ago. She remembered the funeral, the hospital visits, the heartbreak. But the woman standing on the porch right now looked just like her. Only aged, scarred, and carrying a worn leather satchel like she was here on a mission. A knock. Then another. "Emily," the woman said through the door, her voice distorted by the wood. "I know this is hard. But you need to listen to me now. They're going to erase you. And you were never supposed to live this long." The words hit like a car crash. Emily opened the door slowly, and the woman stepped in, removing her hood. Her face was unmistakable, even under the years of wear. But the eyes, they were exactly Emily's. The same shade of green, the same flicker of fight and fear. "You're not my mother," Emily said hoarsely. "No," the woman said. "But I was. For one of you." Emily staggered back as the woman placed the satchel on the table and began pulling out files, photos, and syringes. "You were part of Project Gemini," she said. "An off-the-books experiment in behavioral divergence, memory implantation, and replication. You weren't born naturally, Emily. You were printed, programmed, copied from an original host. And they didn't expect you to question the world they built for you." Emily couldn't breathe. Her whole body felt like it was rejecting reality. "This is insane." "I know it sounds like sci-fi," the woman said calmly. "But ask yourself, why does your reflection glitch? Why do cameras pick up doubles in places you've never been? Why do your medical records reset every year as if you're always being rebooted?" It all started spinning. The doctors who never remembered her name. The recurring dreams. The way her college photos always looked off, like memories someone else had edited. "Why me?" she whispered. "You were a stability test," the woman replied. "Your version wasn't supposed to make it this far. You were flagged for deletion last cycle, but something malfunctioned. You started remembering, realizing. Now you're a threat to the protocol. But there's more. Look at the ledger again. Look at the dates. This didn't just happen to you." Emily opened it once more, hands trembling. The dates went back over 20 years. Names like hers. Profiles like hers. Some marked archived, others terminated, and a few, like hers, marked deviated. She flipped back further. And that's when she saw it. A photo clipped to one of the earliest pages. A child. Her child. Same face, different hair, dressed in an old-fashioned sundress. "What is this?" Emily gasped. The woman's eyes filled with sorrow. That was the first. The original Clara. "You're not a copy of your mother. You're a copy of her daughter. Your memories, your identity, it's a patchwork. Built from someone who vanished decades ago. And I've been trying to find her ever since." Emily backed away, the room spinning, her world collapsing. All her life, she believed she was living one story. Now she was staring down a narrative she didn't even know she was part of. But before she could ask more, there was a sudden screech of tires. Flashing red lights flooded the cabin. A voice boomed through a bullhorn. "Unit Echo 2, cease all activity and exit the premises with your hands visible." The woman looked at Emily, her voice urgent. "They found us. You have to run. Don't let them reboot you. Don't trust the face you think you know next. Not even your own." Before Emily could react, a side window shattered, and masked figures flooded in. Everything became chaos, the roar of voices, the sting of smoke, and in the middle of it all, a pair of cold hands grabbing her shoulders and dragging her through the back door. And in the blur of that terrifying escape, she saw something she couldn't unsee. One of the officers had her face. Not just a resemblance. Her exact face. Smiling. Like it was finally back in control. Emily ran. Her breath came in panicked gasps as she tore through the dense pine forest behind the cabin, feet scraping against roots and rocks, heart thundering in her chest like it might explode. Every shadow felt like a threat, every snapping twig behind her a signal that someone was catching up. Somewhere behind her, the masked figures were moving too, quiet, calculated, not chasing in chaos, but hunting with precision. They weren't just trying to find her. They were trying to extract her, terminate her, rewrite the last page of a story she didn't even know she was in. And she couldn't shake the image burned into her brain, that officer's face. Her own. Staring back like it had been waiting for this moment. That wasn't coincidence. It was control. Hours later, soaked from the rain, shaking from cold and fear, she found shelter in an abandoned ranger station off the old state trail. She blocked the doors with overturned furniture and collapsed beside the rusted fireplace, curling into herself as her thoughts spiraled. Nothing made sense, but it was all happening. The reflection that never quite synced. The names in the ledger. The woman who claimed to be her mother. No, the mother of the original Clara. Her past wasn't just unclear, it was manufactured. She wasn't even sure she had a past. But the question that twisted deeper than all the rest was the one she'd avoided asking from the start. What if this version of her wasn't supposed to exist? Morning came, pale and grim, and Emily powered on the encrypted burner phone the woman had left her. There was one message. A string of numbers followed by a location, a bus terminal in Baltimore. And attached a note. You'll find answers, but not all of them. Be ready to choose.
It didn't say who from.
She stared at the message for a long time before making her way into town, using back roads, ducking cameras, avoiding anyone who looked like they might belong to a federal agency or something worse. At the terminal, hidden in a locker, was a second envelope. Inside was a photo, blurry but unmistakable. Her best friend, Sarah, in a lab, wearing a white coat, holding a file labeled EMR37. Her name, her serial. The pain that hit then was like betrayal wrapped in barbed wire. Sarah had been her anchor through the madness. The one who helped her decode the glitches in her memory, the only person she thought she could trust.
But now?
Had she been part of this from the start? Was she just another handler, programmed to keep Emily within parameters? Or worse, was Sarah one of them? Emily returned to her apartment that night, knowing it could be the last time. Sarah was there, sitting on the couch like nothing had changed. She smiled when she saw Emily, stood up, arms open. I was so worried. Where have you been? Emily held the photo up like a weapon. What is this, Sarah? Sarah's face didn't change. She didn't flinch. It's not what you think. Emily felt her chest tighten. Then tell me exactly what it is. Right now. Sarah hesitated, and that hesitation was the truth. You weren't supposed to find that, she finally said. You weren't supposed to remember anything. You were doing so well. Emily's stomach dropped. Doing well at what? Living a lie? No, Sarah said, stepping closer. Surviving. The last version of you only made it 2 years. This time, you were stable. You were happy. I just wanted to keep it that way. Emily backed away, like she was staring down a stranger. How long have you known? I was there the day they printed you, Sarah said softly. I've been with you since cycle 1. Every time you woke up thinking it was your first day of college. Every birthday. Every breakdown. I helped you rebuild. Because I care about you, Em. Not the program.
You.
Then help me end it, Emily said. Help me expose it. Sarah shook her head slowly.
You don't understand.
You think you're in control now, but you're not. They've given you a choice, and either one you pick, you lose something. You can run again, dig deeper, maybe even burn it all down, but you'll be hunted until you break. Or you let it go. Let me reset your cycle. We wipe the memories. You live peacefully like before. Safe. Normal. Emily felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her. You're giving me an ultimatum. I'm giving you a way out, Sarah said, voice breaking now.
Please.
You don't know what they'll do if you keep fighting. I've seen it. I've cleaned it up. Emily didn't know what scared her more. The idea that this woman, the one who had held her hand through every panic attack, who knew her favorite songs and how she took her coffee, had been assigned to care for her, or the thought that maybe some part of Sarah still meant every word she said. But she knew this. There was no going back. Not after what she'd seen. Not after what she'd felt. They wanted her to choose between comfort and truth, survival and identity. But what if she chose neither? What if she rewrote the rules? Before she could decide, there was a noise outside the door. Soft, deliberate. Sarah turned, eyes narrowing. It's too soon, she whispered. They weren't supposed to come yet. Emily's pulse raced. Another voice, outside.
A man. Come. Sarah.
R37.
Exit the unit now.
You have 60 seconds to comply. Sarah turned to her, terrified now. You have to trust me. Please. Let me erase it. One injection. It's quick. You'll wake up tomorrow, and this will be gone. I'll protect you. Just like before. Emily looked at the needle in her friend's hand. Her mind screamed at her to run, to fight, to resist. But a deeper part, the part still shattered from seeing herself in that officer's face, whispered a different fear. What if Sarah's right? What if the truth is worse than the lie? And then came the choice. Go with Sarah. Or go to the door. And somewhere in that pause, with the seconds ticking down, Emily had a realization that would change everything. There weren't just two sides. There was a third one. And they were waiting for her to make the wrong move. Again. Emily didn't move. The needle in Sarah's hand glinted beneath the ceiling light like a quiet threat disguised as mercy. Her pulse pounded so hard in her ears it drowned out everything else. The countdown outside, the voice on the intercom, even her own breath. Her thoughts tangled in the weight of it all. This wasn't just about memory anymore. It wasn't about identity or some covert experiment gone wrong. It was about control on a scale she could barely comprehend. And for the first time, she realized that she wasn't the only one. The door exploded inward before she could choose. Two masked operatives stormed the apartment, and Sarah's demeanor snapped like a switch. She didn't hesitate, didn't flinch. She threw herself between Emily and the intruders, barking commands in a language Emily didn't recognize. One of the agents paused, startled by Sarah's authority, but the other pushed forward. A struggle followed, brutal, fast and chaotic. Sarah was trained. That much was obvious now. She moved with the precision of someone who'd done this more than once. When it was over, one agent lay unconscious, and the other had retreated into the stairwell. Sarah slammed the door shut, bolted it, and turned back to Emily, still holding the needle. I told you they'd come, she said breathlessly. They're not just after you. They're cleaning house, wiping the board. Emily stared at her, a sick realization dawning in her gut. What do you mean, others? Sarah hesitated. Then she did something unexpected. She stepped to the unconscious agent, pulled a small flash drive from his inner vest pocket, and tossed it to Emily. Plug that in.
Now.
Her hands shaking, Emily plugged it into her old laptop. It booted up instantly and decrypted itself with a biometric scan from Sarah's thumb. What appeared next wasn't just a file, it was a map. A live network grid, full of red and blue dots blinking across the continental United States. At the bottom of the screen, a word pulsed. Actives, 318. They've done this to hundreds, Sarah said. You were Model 37. The first one to survive longer than 5 years. But the others, they're out there, living lives. Some know, some don't. Some broke, went rogue. And now they're being eliminated. Emily felt like her lungs had stopped working.
Why?
What is this? Sarah looked away. It started as a defense project, cloning, memory integration, behavioral simulation. They said it was for espionage, counterterrorism. But the truth? They were building a population of synthetic civilians. Beta testing control. Seeing if people like you could blend in, reproduce, be stable. You weren't supposed to last this long. But you did. And now they're shutting it all down. The room spun. Emily gripped the table for support, nausea twisting in her stomach. All her fears, the déjà vu, the glitches, the familiar strangers, weren't just psychological noise. They were pieces of a larger machine. A terrifying, buried truth hidden in the blueprint of her very existence. Her life was a simulation that had outlived its purpose. And now she was collateral damage in a cleanup operation. I need to warn them, Emily said. The others. Sarah didn't answer right away. Her eyes flicked to the screen, to it blinking in the city of Atlanta. One of them tried. She went public, sort of. Leaked documents to a journalist, uploaded footage to TikTok. The clip got flagged, disappeared within hours. She vanished 2 days later. Emily's heart dropped. Is that what happens when we talk? Sarah nodded. Unless you talk to the right person. Emily clenched her fists. Then I need names. Contacts. Anyone. But before Sarah could answer, the laptop flickered and shut off. A small burst of static electricity snapped against Emily's wrist. They found us, Sarah whispered. That drive wasn't clean. We have to move now.
They ran.
Through the back alley, down the fire escape, across streets like fugitives. But as they reached the safe house, an old florist shop turned off-grid bunker, they were met by a familiar face. One Emily never expected to see again. Officer Harmon, the cop who had first shown her the photo of herself in the police report. He was standing in the doorway, hands raised, gun holstered, looking far too calm. I'm not here to arrest you, he said. I'm here to stop this. I've been inside the program too. Emily froze. You're one of them? I was their handler. In Denver. Until I realized they weren't building agents. They were replacing people. Real ones. With you. Sarah pulled Emily back instinctively. He's lying. He's one of their sweepers. I've seen his name on the blacklist. No, Harmon said quietly. I switched sides when they erased my sister. She was subject 12. I tried to save her. They found out. Now I'm on the kill list too. Emily didn't know who to believe. Sarah had lied to her before. Harmon had withheld the truth. And the air between them felt ready to explode. But then came the final gut punch. Harmon handed her a photo, an aerial shot of a medical facility outside D.C. Redacted. Fenced. No record of its existence on any federal database. This is where it ends, he said. They're rebooting the program, replacing failed subjects with new prototypes. This time, they're adding memory implants from live targets. Real people. If we don't stop it now, they'll expand it nationwide. Emily stared at the photo, then at Sarah. Her whole life had been a lie, maybe even the memories she trusted most. But this wasn't just about her anymore. It was about everyone. The other actives. The real people whose identities had been stolen. The families who didn't know the ones they loved had been replaced. She had one shot to expose it all. But to do that, she'd have to walk into the very place that created her. And no one who went in had ever come out. They reached the facility under the cover of darkness, guided only by the flickering GPS embedded in Sarah's cracked burner phone. The air outside Washington, D.C. felt heavy, as if the earth itself had been holding its breath for too long. A storm rolled over the horizon, thunder growling like some ancient beast rising from its sleep. The compound didn't look like much from the outside. A rusted chain-link fence, motionless cameras, and what appeared to be an abandoned research wing swallowed by forest. But Emily could feel it. Something beneath the surface thrummed with hidden life. This was it. This was where her story had begun, and it was where it had to end. Inside, the halls were eerily silent. Fluorescent lights buzzed weakly overhead, illuminating old signage marked Human Behavioral Simulation, Restricted. Sarah moved ahead with the confidence of someone who had memorized the layout from nightmares. Harmon stayed close, gun drawn, his every glance twitching toward unseen corners. They descended into the lower levels, passing through biometric doors that should have been sealed.
But someone wanted them in.
Someone was expecting her. The elevator stopped at B7, and the doors opened to reveal a control room bathed in cold blue light. Rows of monitors lined the walls, streaming live feeds of people, hundreds of them, living seemingly ordinary lives. In classrooms, at weddings, holding newborns, all of them subjects, all of them unaware. In the center of it all stood Dr. Calwin, the ghost from Emily's fragmented memories. He hadn't aged. Same silver-streaked hair, same calm smile, like a surgeon before a scheduled operation. You made it, he said, almost admiringly. You were always the anomaly, the one who felt too much, remembered too much. We debated decommissioning you 5 years ago, but I argued to keep you online. Now, I see it was a mistake. Emily stepped forward, adrenaline burning through her like wildfire. What is this?
Why?
What are you doing to these people? Calwin glanced at the screens, unbothered. Integration. Refinement. The human mind is messy, Unpredictable, reactive, fragile. We're stabilizing it, creating better versions. You, Emily, are one of our most successful simulations. You were meant to integrate into the general population and simply live. But instead, you glitched. You sought truth. That makes you defective. Harmon raised his weapon. This ends now. Release the rest. Shut it down. But Calwin didn't flinch. He lifted a remote from the console and tapped a button. The monitors flickered, then shifted. One by one, the images began showing the same thing. Emily. Dozens of versions of her. Different lives. Different families. All smiling. All unaware. You think you're special? Calwin said, voice tightening. You're not. You're one of many. You're just the one that woke up. There are others. Backups. Clones. Enhanced models with cleaner code and better emotional dampening.
You were a prototype.
Now you're obsolete. It hit Emily like a punch to the chest. Every connection, every memory, every tear she'd ever shed, it was all part of an experiment in synthetic evolution. She wasn't the only one, and she wasn't even the best version of herself. Suddenly, the alarm screamed. Sarah bolted toward the mainframe, ripping wires from the console while Harmon covered her. But Calwin didn't panic. He pulled a gun of his own and fired, striking Sarah in the shoulder. She hit the floor hard, crying out in pain. Harmon returned fire, but Calwin ducked into a reinforced chamber, locking the door behind him. Emily rushed to Sarah, applying pressure to the wound. We need to shut it down, Sarah gasped. Destroy the server core. Burn it all. But the system was already preparing a mass upload, copying every personality file to a satellite-linked vault somewhere offshore. If the transfer completed, the program wouldn't just survive. It would replicate. Globally. Emily's eyes fell on a single command terminal blinking red. Purge primary subject files. Confirm Y/N. She hesitated. This wasn't just about shutting it down. Purging meant erasing everything, herself included. Her memories, her consciousness, her entire existence coded into the mainframe. Once gone, there'd be no backup. No reboot. No waking up somewhere else. Emily, Sarah said weakly, her blood soaking the floor. If you don't do it, they'll win. And none of this will matter. Emily's fingers hovered over the keys, her breath ragged. All the moments she'd lived, the people she loved, the dreams she had, they were all simulations. But the pain was real. The love was real. The cost had been real. Could she really end it all? A slow smile crept across her face. She typed in a new command. Transfer file, Emily_37TO external drive. She slipped the flash drive into the terminal. I'm not giving them the code, she whispered. But I'm not giving up either. With the drive loaded, she yanked it free, smashed the console with the butt of Harmon's gun, and hit Y on the purge. The entire system erupted in sparks. Screens died. Power flickered. And deep below, the servers began to overheat. Calwin screamed from behind the glass, slamming his fists as the lights dimmed to black. Emily helped Sarah to her feet as Harmon kicked open an emergency stairwell. Fire alarms wailed through the concrete halls. The walls trembled. And just as they reached the surface, the compound erupted in a deep, low rumble, like the belly of the earth groaning beneath the weight of a dying lie. They didn't stop running until dawn broke on the horizon. And just when it felt like it was over, just when Emily thought the story had finally reached its end, her phone, one she'd never seen before but found in her pocket, buzzed softly. One message. No number. Unit_37 located. Initiating recovery. She stared at it, the screen glowing against her dirt-smeared hand. Somewhere, the game had already restarted. Weeks passed in a blur of overcast skies, hospital walls, and silent drives through rural towns where no one asked questions and everyone kept their heads down. Emily had become a shadow in her own life. No last name, no digital footprint, just a quiet existence in the corners of a world she'd once believed was hers. The drive she'd salvaged, containing every line of code, every synthetic memory ever stitched into her soul, now sat buried deep in a metal box beneath the roots of an old oak tree in upstate New York. Not encrypted, not uploaded, just buried. A life once written in code, now laid to rest in dirt. She could have destroyed it, but something inside her, maybe human, maybe just programmed to feel, couldn't bring herself to erase it all. Because despite everything, she had lived. Even if it wasn't real in the way people understood reality, the weight of her grief, her joy, her longing, it was carved into her like stone. Sarah recovered slowly, her arms still in a sling, but the fire behind her eyes had only grown stronger. They didn't talk much about what happened in the facility. Some nights, they'd sit outside under a sky teeming with stars and ask themselves the kind of questions that never had answers. Where did the simulation end and the real world begin? Were they the only ones left? Were there others like Emily still sleeping, still trapped? Or worse, still being used? But it was Harmon who vanished first. No note. No warning.
Just gone.
Emily found his burner phone smashed on the dashboard of an abandoned car parked at a trailhead near the Catskills. The only thing inside the glove compartment was a printout of a map, marked in red, leading to what looked like an offshore server farm somewhere off the coast of Nova Scotia. A breadcrumb. A warning. Or maybe an invitation. That night, Emily sat alone in the cabin, staring into the flickering fireplace while thunder rolled in the distance. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the realization that she no longer belonged to the world she thought she did. She couldn't go back to the old life. Couldn't step into crowds. Couldn't hear her name over a loudspeaker without flinching. Every face on the street might be another version. Another experiment. Another ghost in the machine. But even with that knowledge, even with the scars burned deep into her psyche, she began to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time: freedom. Not because the threat was over. It wasn't. Not by a long shot. But because for the first time she knew who she was. Not just a product of code or a corrupted program. She was the glitch they hadn't accounted for. The proof that even in the most carefully controlled systems, chaos finds a way to slip through. And yet, just as the fire dimmed and her eyes began to close, she heard the low hum of an engine outside. A car pulling in. Headlights swept across the cabin windows, and then darkness. Her pulse quickened. She stood, heart pounding, unsure if it was Harmon, if it was Sarah, or if it was something else. She stepped to the door, cautiously pulled it open, and froze. There, on the front steps, sat a small package. No return address. Just a white box sealed with red wax. Inside, a single object, a photo. She turned it over, and her breath caught in her chest. It was her. Not from this life, not even from the simulation she remembered, but another version. Another Emily. Wearing different clothes, different eyes, standing beside people she didn't recognize, smiling like she belonged. On the back, in black ink, just 3 words. You're not done. Emily looked up into the night, wind rattling through the trees like a whisper from something ancient and watching. Somewhere out there, a war was still being waged in silence. A battle for memory, for identity, for the soul of what it meant to be human in a world built on illusion and control. She didn't know where it would take her, or who she could trust next, but she knew she wouldn't run anymore. The fire behind her crackled to life again, unprovoked. And as the screen of her phone lit up once more, with coordinates pulsing in soft blue light, viewers are left with the final image. Emily stepping into the darkness, armed only with truth, a buried past, and the chilling certainty that nothing was ever what it seemed. Not even her. Because sometimes, the most dangerous secret isn't that your life was a lie, it's that the lie was better than the truth. And that truth is still out there. Watching. Waiting. Trending.